Hey everyone, so if you're watching this video, it's because I needed a project to work on during quarantine, because I don't really have a lot else to do right now. And if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that means you don't have a lot else to do either. So, having that said, anyone who knows anything about me knows that I love movies. I love to watch movies, I love to make my own movies, I love to talk about movies, all of it. So I thought, since we've got time on our hands, this could be a time for me to just talk about the 10 movies that had the biggest impact on me throughout any point in my life. Now, I cannot stress this enough. This is not me saying these are the 10 best movies ever made. These are the 10 movies that will change your life. These are just the 10 movies that come to mind when I think of movies that, after the first time I watched them, I went, yeah, I'm going to remember that, and in a good way. Because let's face it, some movies we remember for the wrong reasons. But we're not here to talk about that because we want to keep it positive, because let's face it, we could all use a little positivity right now. So keep in mind, there will be movies on this list probably where you'll be like,
what?
but that's okay, you know, make your own list. That sounded really mean, but I actually think that'd be really fun. Like, that'd be a fun challenge to make a video of your 10 movies that had the biggest impact on you at any point in your life. I think that'd be really fun, actually. Because if there was ever a time where we have time to sit down and branch out and watch new movies, it's right now. So, I don't know, maybe you'll watch this video and go, I haven't seen that movie. Or maybe you have, and you didn't like it. Maybe this could offer a new perspective. I don't know. I don't know you very well, probably. But, without further ado, these are the 10 movies that had the biggest impact on me at some point in my life that just stuck with me for one reason or another. So here we go. Number 10. Number 10 is a little movie called Rudy. Rudy. And it's about a boy named Rudy. Played brilliantly by Sean Astin, who just captures the essence of a boy who is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his dream. He wants to play football for Notre Dame, and he has everybody telling him he can't do it. He has teachers telling him that he's a dreamer, not a doer. He has a dad telling him, that's not really realistic, son. You gotta just, get a real job. But he is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his dream. And if you've never felt that way about something, don't worry, you will. You will find something in your life where you're like, I can't budge on this. I have to do this. And it's a true inspiring story about the underdog, because let's face it, we all love the underdog story, and in my opinion, this is some of the best storytelling of the underdog. It is so inspiring, and it tugs at the heartstrings every time. And also, Rudy reminds me of my friend Zach sometimes, and it makes me giggle. I first caught Rudy on TV, and it made me cry because I was moved by it. So if you haven't watched Rudy, check it out. Number 9. Number 9 is a black and white movie that I first saw in high school called 12 Angry Men. So I started to study film in high school. That's when I really got into writing and acting and all that stuff. And 12 Angry Men was the first movie that really hit me, where it was like, oh my gosh, pacing doesn't come down to how many locations can you go to in a movie, how many places can you zip-zap back and forth between. No, it all comes down to writing and acting. If you have snappy dialogue, which clearly I don't have, you can make a scene go by fast even though it seems like not a lot is happening. Because this movie largely takes place in one room. And it's all the same ensemble of characters. They don't really go out and meet other people. It's not like, we gotta go to this place and meet this guy. We gotta go get this thing from this guy. Most of the movie is just in one room. But the dialogue is so good, and the acting is so good, that the entire time I was like, yeah. And it's a movie about a jury who is all arguing back and forth about whether somebody is guilty or not guilty in a murder. And to see them bring up all their arguments and all of their points, it's just, it's so engaging. Again, it was the first time that I had really seen a movie after I had studied writing where I was like, holy crap. You don't need to have your characters go to a bunch of different locations and go visit a bunch of different people. You can have a movie take place mostly in one room. And if you have the characters well written and fleshed out, it's going to stay interesting the whole time. And it's so well directed, and I love it. And if black and white isn't really your thing, if you don't really like watching older movies, please watch it. It is so good, it is so engaging, and it's so well directed, and just go watch it, please. Just please. Number 8. Dumb and Dumber. Yeah, I know. You're sitting here probably thinking, Sharon, Dumb and Dumber, really? But I'm sorry, this movie had a huge impact on me because the first time I watched it, I was like 12, and I watched it with my friends Tyler and Trent. Shout out Tyler and Trent. Hi. So we were having a sleepover at their house, and we got in so much trouble for watching this movie. Not because we weren't allowed to watch it. We got full permission to watch it, but we started watching it at like 11 at night, and their little sister was trying to sleep across the hall, and we kept laughing so loud that like their mom kept thinking we were going to wake her up, so she kept barging in the room and being like, "Shut up! Shut up!" She's like, "I know it's a funny movie. It's one of my favorites, but shut up." And we were just laughing so hard, so consistently throughout the whole movie. And I don't remember a time before or since then that a movie has made me laugh that hard, that consistently, to where I was actually afraid to laugh because of the consequences. I think it's safe to say it's probably the funniest movie I've ever seen, still. And keep in mind, this movie's not for everybody. There's crude humor in it, there is toilet humor in it, but my gosh, to this day I still laugh so much when I watch that movie. Again, I probably stand by saying it's the funniest movie I've ever seen. So that movie, I can never forget it because of just how much it made me laugh the first time I watched it. Dumb and Dumber. Number 7. Number 7 is a movie from 1978 called Superman. You may have heard of him. Superman stars Christopher Reeve, who just nails that role. I no offense to Henry Cavill or anyone who's played him since, but to me, Christopher Reeve is and always will be the definitive Superman. Sorry, everybody. He just is. And I have a very good memory tied with this movie. So when I was about 7, I had to stay home sick from school, and my mom went out to the grocery store while I was staying at home. And when she came back, she surprised me with a VHS copy of that movie. VHS. And she sat down and watched it with me. Now, as you can imagine, as a 7-year-old kid, I did not have a long attention span. I still don't. Anyway, the movie's like 2.5 hours long, and it held my attention the whole time because I was so invested with the world building and the storytelling and the character development. This 7-year-old boy was ready to believe that Krypton was a real place, that Christopher Reeve could really fly through the clouds. And what I love about this movie is the villain's plan is kind of unique because he's just a guy who wants power, but the way he goes about it is actually kind of different and clever. He doesn't just have a death ray pointed at the earth where he's going to just fire and blow up the earth. No, he goes out and he buys the land on the whole eastern half of California, east of the San Andreas Fault that's all just nothing, just desert for ever and ever and ever. He goes and buys all that land, and then he steals a military missile and he launches it into the San Andreas Fault, just the precise place to just sink the whole western half of California into the ocean. And it's awesome because then he's like, yeah, you guys want to have beachfront property now? You guys want to live in California now? You gotta come to my land, man. You gotta buy on my property now. And it's kind of different because he's just a guy who wants land and power. Yeah. And I know some people will say, dude, the effects are so outdated on that movie and so is the fashion. I don't care. I will watch that movie any day. And people who know me know I love the MCU. They know I love modern superhero movies. And I do. They're awesome. But I stand by this saying this is still one of the best comic book movies ever made. Yeah. I said it. Yeah. So Superman the movie, 1978. Bam. Number 6. Number 6 is a movie called Die Hard. It's got Bruce Willis. It's got Alan Rickman, rest in peace. And this is such an awesome action movie. I didn't see this till later in life. I was probably about 17 or 18. Yeah, I know. I was late to the game. Sorry. But this movie rocks. It breaks a lot of the mold of what the 80s action movies were. You had your Sylvester Stallone. You had your Arnold Schwarzenegger, who would just walk into any room and own that room. They would just kill everybody relentlessly, and they would never break a sweat. And most people wouldn't even get a hit on them. And then along comes Bruce Willis, and he's like, hey, everybody, I'm just like you. I'm your everyday man. Not only does he struggle when he goes up against bad guys, he actually gets scared and talks to himself. It's awesome. And much like 12 Angry Men, it largely takes place in the same location. But you don't ever lose interest because you're so invested with the character, and you so badly want him to succeed. And he's so likable and relatable. And the one-liners, come on guys, the one-liners. Come out to the coast, get together, have a few laughs. It's awesome. Once I saw this movie, I realized how much other action movies after that borrowed from this. This basically broke the mold of what action movies had come to be up until that point. And it defined how action movies were going to be made from here on out. It's awesome, it's dope, it's violent, so, be cautious going into it. But man, this movie is going to stick with me for the rest of my life. Die Hard. Excuse me. Number 5. Number 5 is a little movie from the year 1985 called The Goonies. The first time I watched this movie, I was about 8 years old, and I don't remember why. I don't think I was homesick or anything, but for some reason, I was left home alone. And I decided to browse through all the movies we had on our shelf. And I came across it and I just thought, yeah, you know what? I'm going to watch that. I popped it in and I immediately was hooked because it is a group of foul-mouthed kids who go on basically Indiana Jones type adventures. And it's awesome. These kids have awesome chemistry, and so many things since have taken inspiration from it. You've got Monster Squad, you've got Super 8, you've got Stranger Things, all that pretty much borrow that same formula of kids on adventures, foul-mouthed, swearing at each other, insulting each other, but also bouncing off each other's ideas and knowing how to get out of situations. It's great. This movie made me want to go on these kind of adventures with my friends. And funny enough, it's the second movie on this list to have Sean Astin in it. Maybe there's a theme here. Or maybe not. It's got pirates. It's got booby traps. It's got Josh Brolin. What more can you ask for in a movie? The Goonies. Oh yeah. Number 4. Number 4 is a little movie you might have heard of called Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. And yeah, I know, technically when the movie was first released in 1977, it was just called Star Wars. There was no Episode 4, there was no New Hope, it was just Star Wars. I get that. I know that's how it was. But I'm talking about how I was first introduced to the movie as a wee little lad when I would pop in the VHS tape and it was labeled Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. Now basically from the time I was able to speak, I would pop in the tape and watch this movie every day. I'm sure I drove my mom crazy, and there are actually points on the VHS tape I owned that just completely wore out because I watched it so much. I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. Oh yeah. I wanted to fly around in spaceships and fight the Empire with my friends. I wanted a pet Wookiee, yeah, you know you did too. And I wanted an old man to take me under his wing and make me his apprentice too. But this movie is timeless, this movie is a classic. Ask anybody who was around when this movie first came out, and they will tell you it changed everything. It changed the way we looked at movies. It changed the way blockbusters were made. From the time I was able to speak, pretty much, I was quoting this movie. And that hasn't stopped. And it's never going to stop. This movie goes down with the other two as an installment in one of the best trilogies ever made. And I know everyone and their dog has said that, but I'm saying it too, because I'm just a human being.
As a human being.
Number 3. Well, get your DeLoreans and your hoverboards because we are talking about Back to the Future. So the first time I saw Back to the Future, much like the Goonies, was when I was 8 years old. My uncle came into town with the VHS copy of it, and he came to visit us, and we popped it in, and we all watched it together, and it blew my mind. Like I said, at that age, I had a short attention span, so for a movie to hold my interest for that long without a bunch of explosions and crap really says something. This was the first time where I realized character was important, because I didn't care how much action was or wasn't happening. I was so invested with the character Marty McFly that I just had to know what happened next at all times. I fell in love with this movie from that first watch, and right after that I asked my parents if we could watch it again, and they were like, no, go to bed. So I did, and the next day I got up, I popped it in, and I watched it again, because I just couldn't get enough of it. It was amazing. It was amazing then, it's amazing now, and much like Star Wars, it's an installment in what I consider to be one of the best trilogies of all time. Back to the Future, baby. Number 2. Number 2 is kind of cheating because it's technically 2 movies, but I consider them to be one big 2-part movie. I consider it to be just the same story extended over 2 movies. And that is Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. You may have heard of them. I don't know, I think one of them broke some kind of record or something, I don't know. But these were some of the best theatrical experiences I've ever had in my life. I have never been in an auditorium full of people who were so invested in the same story as me and in the same characters as me. If you haven't seen the movies, I won't spoil too much, but all I will say is both movies featured moments where everybody in the auditorium would collectively gasp, collectively cheer, collectively sniffle like babies, and collectively laugh out loud. I'd never been in an audience that was so invested and so intrigued by the same story and characters as me. And keep in mind, these movies top off a story that was started 10 years earlier, and like 20-something movies before it. It's amazing. What they did with these movies, like them or not, is kind of crazy because it hadn't really been done before, or at least not on this scale. To have 20-something movies, all within the same continuity, telling one big story, and not have one of them be straight up garbage, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, I know, some of them are a dip in quality, some of them aren't as good as others, but ultimately there's not one movie in the whole MCU I would consider straight up garbage. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it, because there are 20-something Bond films, and let's face it, some of those Bond films, oof, yikes. But they're also mixed in with some great ones. But with the MCU, it's actually kind of crazy how much they keep up the consistency of quality. And it's really unlike anything we've had in cinema up to this point, I think. And somehow, they managed to cap off 20-something movies in a very satisfying and epic way. I'm very glad I was alive in a time to experience this. So Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame definitely make it on the list of movies that had the biggest impact on me. Number 1. Kangaroo Jack.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Number 1 is a movie that came out in 1960 called Psycho. I was 12 years old. My mother let me pop in this movie, and it's safe to say it scared the poop out of me. Again, much like 12 Angry Men, don't let the black and white scare you, or the fact that it's an older movie scare you away. It is so worth your time, it is so intriguing, and it's one I would dare to call a horror masterpiece. It is so good. Alfred Hitchcock really outdoes himself here, and I definitely consider it to be his best movie. I did not see any of it coming at all. It threw me for a loop the whole time, and I could not take my eyes off the screen for the entire runtime. Talk about an iconic character, talk about an iconic score. Yeah, there was no way this movie was not going to stick with me. And this movie is what really got me into horror. Anybody who knows me knows I love horror movies, and this is the movie that started it all off. If you haven't seen this movie, just what are you doing? Go see it. Even if R-rated movies aren't your thing, it's very, very tame. It has little to no swearing, it has very little blood, and they weren't even allowed to show nudity back then in movies. This movie could easily be shown on TV today, unedited. So do yourself a favor, check it out, and you will understand. So anyway, that brings us to the end. Those are the 10 movies that stuck with me the most after watching them. Those are the 10 movies that just hit hard, and made me go, yep, I'm going to remember that. And I did, because obviously I talked about them all. So I would actually love to hear your guys' feedback. What are 10 movies that had the biggest impact on you? Or if you don't want to do 10, just do a couple. Comment down below, or better yet, make your own video. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to make this challenge to, just kind of branch out and discover people's movies. So thanks for watching.